have an issue.
People claim that the struggle is worse for women.
I think that's just a part of Twitter.
People who are saying normally,
They get the likes of the retweets and stuff like that.
We just want what's good for us. So moving forward.
Oh, is what you say in like 2010? Welcome back to the Soapbox. It's your host at classic_Vin. To the left of me, we have Joseph. And next to him, we have Aita. And to the right of me, we have Kristen and Tia. Today's topic is college. Is college necessary? Boom. Let's debate it.
It depends. I think that it depends. For example, for professions such as like being a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, you want somebody to go to school. But for a lot of stuff, you don't need, if you just want to have money, you don't necessarily need to go to college for it these days. There's so many other ways and platforms you can get money. Yeah.
But do you really want to run that risk, though? Because it's like, on one hand, especially after 2008, they say now the student loans bubble is a lot bigger than the housing bubble. So it's becoming a lot more risky to take out student loans and even harder to pay them off. But on one hand, I still think that it's pretty clear that going to college gives you a higher degree of certainty of finding a position and being able to make reasonable amounts of money rather than not going to college. Sure, you don't have the same level of debt that you would have, but at the same time, you're statistically speaking, you're probably going to wind up in a lower paying job.
I mean, that's true if you want to be an employee, but if you want to be more along the lines of like doing stuff yourself, entrepreneur, right? You don't need that per se.
I mean,
you're not in the same pool as everybody else.
So like me personally, I'm a pre-law major. I want to be a lawyer. And like you were saying, like it is easier, I feel it's easier for me to go to college compared to like Kim Kardashian. She's like doing like a apprenticeship. Just like certain professions and just in general, I feel like not going to college, you're gonna have a harder time doing what you wanna do and like lesser pay and less respect, honestly, in your field, just not having a degree. But if you just want to open up a business, like, sure, go ahead. That's all you.
Yeah, I definitely think that it varies between, because even like with the statistics that you gave, if you were to, for me, I want to become an actor and director professionally. And if you were to do like a survey on everyone in Hollywood, I'm sure at least like 70% of them did not go to college. A lot of the big actors that you know today, Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, Will Smith, all these other people, they did not go to college. And they're making uber bucks. So there's that.
On the other hand, though, it's like, sure, you can not go to college, and we have, let's say, Bill Gates. He dropped out of college. He's second richest man in the world. How many people are going to wind up like Bill Gates? Yeah. And how many other people are going to be working at McDonald's the rest of their life, hoping that they'll become Bill Gates? So, like, even with the people you mentioned, I feel for every one person you mentioned who is able to avoid the system and still become famous or wealthy or both, there's a lot of people who have that same mindset who skip out on college but then wind up working as, like, say, a Dollar General manager for the rest of their life.
And even with that point, I still think it goes back to, like, career, because people who work in the entertainment industry, you just have more of a, it's better to have the experience than it is to have the education. Because once you, like, go in and you're in, like, with the casting director, if you're a better actor and you haven't had college, like, you didn't go to Tisch or you didn't go to, like, Yale School of Drama, you're a better actor than the people who went to Tisch. Because probably you spent those 4 years honing on your crafts in a different way and actually doing films and all these other things instead of going to school. Not saying that you shouldn't go to school even if you're, like, in the entertainment industry, but it really just varies. Because with people who want to be like Bill Gates, most times you need a degree to do what he does. A lot of people are not just as smart as Bill Gates is, and as a lot of these other great, is Warren Buffett, what did he do? He does something.
Investing.
But investing, I don't know if he went to college, but some people, they need to learn how to do that, and others just have it naturally.
So I think I disagree. I think it just comes down to IQ. So you don't necessarily have to go to college, but like if you have the IQ and even EQ to like, and the work ethic to get what you need to get done. Like Steve Jobs dropped out, but he's smart enough and he has the vision to know like what he needs to do to be successful. Whereas someone else who's dropping out because they're lazy, they might not be as successful because they think like school's a waste of time, they don't have the vision for what they want to do, and they think, well, oh, Bill Gates did it, and it's like, you're not as smart as Bill Gates. Sorry.
You don't have the discipline.
Yeah, you don't have the work
I agree
ethic.
with like a third of that. I don't think it that much has to do with IQ as much as it does with effort and like the work you put into it. If you really want to do something, it sounds cliche, but like if you really work at it, and depending on what it is, of course, you can get as far, if not farther than you would with a degree in a lot of things.
I feel like I even have to disagree with that logic only because I don't think it is always as much as how smart you are or how much work you put in. I still feel that there's a certain level of exposure and credibility that just comes with having a degree behind your name, even if that degree isn't necessarily apropos to whatever you're pursuing. Because to a lot of employers, a degree just says you are able to be focused and committed enough to going to an institution for long enough. You're willing to put in the work for stuff. And I mean, we're talking even classes that are not going to necessarily help you in real life, like say chemistry and all your gen eds. Like some of those stuff you're not going to need. But I feel that having a college degree gives you almost like a kind of golden ticket to the chocolate factory that shows that you have a certain degree of discipline and preparation in order to handle whatever kind of challenges an employer might have.
So I'm going to pose a question right here real quick. Do you think that because of our color of our skin, or any POC, person of color, should they go to college just because of what our society is like? Let me expound on that. Sorry, y'all. All right, so do you think that because we are a person of color, or people of color in general, do you believe that they should go to college? Let's say, yes, they have the IQ to do whatever.
Is it because like most colleges just cater more to white people? I'm trying to get like the context.
So do you think that they should go to college?
Yes.
Yeah.
More than white people?
I say yes, mostly because, and I'm going to disagree with what you were saying. I think college is an experience. It's a holistic experience, not just a degree. Like, I feel like I've grown and I've changed so much in like my 3 years being here compared to people back home who didn't go to college. And I think it's like maturity, and like even you said your gen eds, like you're getting a holistic experience, so you're getting like knowledge and like mindsets from different professors, like wisdom from different kinds of people in different fields. And so you don't necessarily, I don't think it's necessarily just a golden ticket. And I think Black people can definitely benefit from that, especially some of the environments that we come from. We need something new, we need to grow, we need to better ourselves, and college is a great way to do that. It's not the only way, but I think it's just a default way to do that.
Yeah. I would even go a step further. I'd say it is more necessary for Black people to go to college than white people, only because white people, I believe, already have a greater amount of resources available. So even as in terms of just being able to walk into banks and get certain interest rates and other opportunities that are not available for Black people, there is a very, very small percentage of opportunities available for Black people, and almost none of them are for Black people that haven't had some type of either professional or educational experience.
And I would stress HBCU experience as well, because like a lot of times you can go to college, but a PWI is not healthy for you for a lot of people. So, I mean, that's just me. I like HBCUs, but
It depends though.
Yeah.
Because from my perspective, I love being at an HBCU, and I would always choose an HBCU. But I've always grown up in a Black predominant space. And even though I know how to function around other races, a lot of people who've grown up the same way I have, they don't know how to function around other people. And I feel like some people need to be thrown into like a PWI who need that.
I
They
disagree.
need that.
I disagree. I feel like my HBCU...
Maybe not like a PWI, like a healthy mix of people.
I feel like an HBCU teaches you how to interact in a white space better than a PWI, because it's safer, and it's like and they'll tell you how to deal with it without actually having to deal with it.
But then isn't experience better than people telling you?
Yeah.
It's like if you're dealing in like straight black people for 4 years, you go into the world and you're like, what, 13% of the population?
Yeah.
You're not dealing with, even if they told you this is what to look out for, do this, not that, that's theory.
But when
You have to
you're
put it into practice.
experiencing it without, like in a PWI, you're experiencing it without acknowledging what the problem is. So you're experiencing it and you don't know how to fix it, you don't know what's wrong.
Depends on your mindset, though.
Yeah,
you
but-
can be in there and still be thinking why it's wrong, how to fix it. And in some cases, I feel like that might be better because you're actually dealing with it like head-on, live action.
I just feel like this social education you get here is just better at a PWI.
Yeah,
feel like social
I agree
for
with the
black space.
HBCU because it's like, at the end of the day, college is, what, 4 years maybe? A little longer if you take a little longer. But you're going to get your experience in like a predominantly white environment, like don't get me wrong. That being said, it's almost like going to flight school. Your first day of flight school is not you in the plane, like learning in the plane. It's in a classroom. So you have your amount of theory, and then from there, you do have time to actually like, go into like the environment and then take the skills that you have learned in a classroom. But, just on-the-job training,
or something?
on-the-job training isn't always the best thing, and sometimes it can almost have the opposite effect. It can be detrimental, and I feel that just from looking at how the rates of black people who go to white schools and actually stay versus the rates of black people who go to black schools and actually stay, the disproportion shows the benefits of going to an HBCU.
Would you mind if I go back to that little golden ticket thing?
Yeah.
All right. So with the, I get what you're saying with the, because when you have a degree, employers know you can complete something. But that's like with the way society is and has been for like however long. But obviously society is changing with like degrees and what people can do in terms of entrepreneurship. So how do you think like in 15, 20 years that golden ticket idea would have changed? Because I feel like it's going to change significantly. Like the weight of a college degree in terms of experience.
The weight of
in
a college.
contrast to experience.
Are you talking about just like in general or like
Yeah.
specific fields?
I mean, not specific fields, like, because I don't think doctors are going to be walking around just learning at home. But, you know,
Right.
yeah.
Right. I would say from that aspect, believe it or not, the economy and the demographic population is a larger factor than most people would account for. The economy, I mean, if you look at it, the student loans bubble, I feel will burst at some point, probably within 15 years. That's going to
4.
drastically. Yeah, exactly. Like,
Probably 4.
yeah. Well, sometime
More
soon.
in
Sometime
2020.
soon. Hopefully after I pay off my student loans. But
I pay mine.
but no, it's like it will probably become less required just because. But if I feel like it will become less necessary only because more people are getting it. But
More people are getting it?
yeah, because like after a certain point, people are going to want something different. Because like if everybody thinks that they're going to go to college and then that's going to qualify them for certain positions, employers are going to be like, okay, well now we need some type of differentiation. It's like if everybody's doing
Isn't
it.
that what everybody's doing now, trying to get a college degree?
Well, not as much because I mean, you still have your trade schools and you still do have a certain amount of people who will just accept like say a high school degree or something like that or prefer work experience.
I feel like since everyone is going to college, it's leaving more space for trade schools and success. You see success in YouTubers, you see success in like other fields that necessarily weren't successful before. And especially new jobs are created like every year. And so it's just gonna like have it's gonna like create more space for different kinds of jobs, and like people are gonna be like, oh, I want to be a plumber, and they're gonna be okay with it now because they know like college isn't the only way I can be successful.
I can speak of a person who's had an experience of going to college and then going into the work sphere. And for them, they regretted paying out all this money and getting this loan because when they went into, like for their interviews, it's like, hey, did you go to college? Yes. Then they go on like, that's it. Like they go on to their interview questions. They just want to know, like, check it off. They don't care if you went to Cornell or wherever else, or like community college, it's like, oh, you just went to college. And it's different if you're going to a law firm where they want like Harvard graduates and something like that. But if you're just getting a job in just something smaller that's still paying well, they usually don't care that much. And I feel that for some people, if you can't afford it, depending on what you want to do, don't go. Because loans, it just depends. Because college, universities are getting super expensive. And loans, people are drowning from their loans right now. Like why am I'm not me, but people have $70,000 loans that they can't even, after college, they can't get a mortgage. They can't buy a car. And even if they do, that's like 3 loans on them already. So even if you're not going to college, go to somewhere small. If you're,
Okay.
I hope I'm making sense.
I will say for the law firms, it's more like your resume and your internship experience. So like for them, it doesn't really matter where I went to school as long as I'm showing that like I'm interested in this field and like I'm working hard towards it. And I know that like the average law student has at least $100,000 in debt. But it's like an investment.
And isn't that crazy?
I mean, like for us, I know my profession, it's an investment because like you go into big law, you're gonna make 5 times that in like 2 years.
No, but you're paying $100,000. But for someone who's going to the same school, who's a graphic designer, who's not gonna make that much money right off the bat as you, they still have $100,000.
Yeah.
So doctors and graphic designers, they have to be paying the same, well, not doctors, but you and like a graphic designer have to be paying the same amount of money, and they're not guaranteed to make that same amount of money after.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that I don't think you need to go, but if you do want to go, don't like shovel out a whole bunch of money right now. Go to a community college. Go to somewhere that's not as expensive.
Yeah, because like I said, a lot of places don't care. If you have the internship, you have the shadowing experience, like they're gonna be like, oh, great, because someone from Harvard didn't have an internship. They just assumed that Harvard was gonna be enough for them.
Yeah, but I feel like, especially in regards to what you both were speaking to, you were more so saying where you go to college, where to me it's more of a question of did you? Because like where you were saying, I don't know what type of job that person was applying to. Would he have gotten even an opportunity to interview had he not gone to college? Or going to law school? Yeah. Like, sure, maybe you do have some exceptions of people who receive private training, Kim Kardashian, other people who might be able to pass an LSAT by studying independently. Maybe a school might let them in. But for the grand majority of people, like if you don't go to college, what are your real options?
What about people who, because I know that you guys know this, because back home, I remember going through like even though I wasn't looking for a job, in the newspaper, they always have that section where they're looking for jobs. So for someone who's straight out of college, because for all 3 of my brothers, it took them a while to get a job like straight out. And if you're straight out of college, you have this amazing degree, you're now $100,000 in debt, but your job is asking you for the degree and 5 years experience, and you just got out of college. And in my head, for someone who didn't go to college, but has that 5 years experience and has the experience of whatever they did, I think they have a better chance of getting that job. Because if they've been doing what this person has been practicing to do, I think they just have a better chance.
I think that goes back into when I was saying college is a holistic experience. And so even though you might not have the 5 years of experience in the field, the holistic experience you get in college, just maturity-wise, work ethic-wise, like you're gonna be ahead compared to somebody else.
What else is included in that holistic experience?
What do you mean? Oh, like...
Don't try to be funny.
No, I mean, like, because you get critical thinking. I mean, if you look at it, if you look at it though, college-educated people just do better in America, and that's not even in terms of like financially. That's in terms of they're more active politically. Like they read more. You know, you just going to college puts you in an environment where it is a holistic process where you're learning so much. And then whenever you leave, statistics show you just do better overall.
And like
I think you can put yourself in a lot of great situations and great environments without going to school as well. Like I'm not against college all the time, But like I feel like you can put yourself in some places in terms of internships, in terms of a lot of things that you can do to get the same kind of experience and also more practical, which I
I
think
just
is
feel
really-
also socially, like, so living on a dorm teaches you how to get along with various kinds of people. It's gonna be 2 a.m. and somebody's gonna be screaming, and you're gonna be like, you can either be disrespectful or you could, talk to them like an adult and like get the situation handled. And that's not something you get when you don't. You know what I'm saying?
depending on where you live, you can live in
Yeah.
an apartment complex where the same thing is happening.
Exactly.
That's true, but I mean, like, I'm forced to live with different kinds of people all
You can't
day.
choose who lives in your apartment
I just
building
think,
either.
I agree with Aite where it's, at university, you do get what you're talking about, but you can also mirror those same experiences somewhere else.
Yes, but it's not guaranteed. Like, college, I feel like you're paying for guaranteed growth, if that makes sense.
You can get a lot of growth. Like I took a year off this past year, and I had more growth in that year off than I've had like in a while. Like it was. That's why you can't just
But I
limit
feel like
growth to
that's
school.
you coming
Yeah.
out and not like not going at all, if that
Right.
makes sense.
That's like, I agree with her because it's like that's more so you taking what you've learned and applying it to your environment as opposed to never having that knowledge prior. And just in my opinion.
It felt kind of like building from zero, to be honest.
But to be honest, college, to me, if I had to say the number one benefit of going to college, it's opportunity. Because there are smarter people who have never gone to college who will continue to work low-paying jobs just because they don't have the opportunity, the exposure, the opportunity to get something beyond their grasp, something where, they can actually do something where they're putting their full mind to use and actually being compensated fairly for it.
I agree with the exposure thing. I mean, that's how it is now. But like going back, I feel like it's not going to always stay that same dynamic. Like in terms of exposure, you're probably going to be looking at something really different a couple years from now.
Yeah.
Well, how do you envision that being different?
How? I don't know.
Because I mean, obviously, like everything in this world is changing. but-
Exactly. So you can't stick to the same script that we've been following. With, like we're talking about social media stuff. Like it's all changing. So.
Yeah. And just to speak to your point, for me, even though I'm speaking as if I'm not in support of college, I'm in university right now, and I'm going into an industry where a lot of people who've been successful didn't go to university, and I'm going to college strictly on strategy. I know, like I know all the stuff that you're telling me. I know that it's just a better chance if I go to college right now, do what I need to do, get my degree, meet the people I need to meet, and then go do what I want to do. Because not only are you getting the education, but for me, I'm also gaining connections. Because through like my theater people here and professors, I'm talking to them, and they're put me in like internships. They put me on to other like directors in Hollywood that I would never have known if I was back home, like sitting down somewhere.
Or if she just moved straight to LA.
Exactly.
Like, it's
And
hard
that question
to meet
with how the
people.
dynamic would change, like if in the future, like less or more validity is given to stuff like trade schools or not internship programs, but programs that are an alternative to college, if those get more like validation or whatever, it looks like the equal in people's eyes, then you're gonna have the same opportunities or experiences in those alternatives that you do in college right now, because in society, college is the top right now. But if it kind of like levels out the playing field, then you're gonna get the same opportunities in both
And you
fields,
see that
both
happening,
spectrums.
because
Exactly.
at some point, like maybe 15 years from now, university level, like your BA is not enough. You need to have your master's in order to get a good job. 20 years after that, it's like, you only have a master's, you need a PhD, something like that. So I think it's always gonna keep adding stuff on.
I think the only way to level the playing field is 1, raising minimum wage, and 2, paid internships. Because like it's very difficult to find me personally, finding a paid internship. And like that goes to experience. I might not go to college if I could find a paid internship, or if minimum wage was raised and I could do something in my field that was lower level.
All right, so I'm gonna pose a question. What are some of the biggest surprises or things you wish somebody would have warned you about before you decided to attend college?
Being broke. Like I worked in high school, and like I was spending money on nothing. I have no idea where it went. But if I saved like throughout high school and like used it right now, I would be so much better off, like, in my journey, instead of, like, having to ask my parents for money or, like, having to do something for, like, a job.
It doesn't apply to me as much, just because it's not necessarily a mistake I made, but it's a mistake I see made a lot, is I know we live in America, and so I know people get the feeling that, you know, you can chase your dreams, and we kind of all have envisioned ourselves like the fairy tale life and, you know, the life.
The American dream.
But it's not always like that, and especially as a proponent of college, not every degree is going to take you to the same place. There will be some degrees that you do pursue that will not recoup your investment. And so even though if you have a passion for something, I feel you should still pursue it, you have to be economical about it. So you have to look at markets, and so you have to say, okay, like at this point in time, so many college students with this degree are being hired. And like, so at the same time, so like you do want to have a passion, but you can't just go to college for basket weaving hoping that you'll be able to find a profession and be able to pay off your student loans doing basket weaving. So you have to be, and like I said, that's why I picked business marketing, because I do want to go to law school afterwards, but at the end of the day, I don't know if I'm going to go to law school after I finish, and I don't want to be stuck with, say, a political science degree. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I need
It puts you in a box.
I need versatility. Like I need to be able to say that with this degree, I have a chance at X amount of professions. And for business marketing or for any business major, there are a lot of them, certainly more than political science.
But
I totally
if the
get
college
that.
degree is just letting people know you can finish something, doesn't matter what degree you tried to get, if you're just trying to find a job to pay off your loans?
That's a very good question, but it's all about the greatest chance, I feel. So you going to college puts you at a greater chance of getting a certain type of job than somebody who didn't. Of those people,
as like
I know I'm gonna get there. Like, so you going to college alone gives you a greater probability of being hired for certain positions. Of the people who went to college, also factoring against your work experience, because that does play a really large role, people who majored in specific areas have a higher probability of being hired for those areas than people who didn't. So to me, it's just a probability game. So at the top, you have people who got work experience and majored in a certain field, the field that they want to work in. And then it just keeps on going backwards from there.
Yeah, and I totally get that, because for me, I just didn't want to get an acting degree, because I know that even though it's my passion, and I'm going to do that, but I also want to do everything. I want to work behind the scenes. I want to be a producer. I want to be a director. I want to do whatever I put my mind to within the entertainment industry. So I don't have an acting degree. I have a film degree. So I'm learning everything within that. I also have a minor in political science. So if I wanted to be Angela Rye one day, I'm going to be Angela Rye one day. You feel me? So yeah, I think that people should, if they're deciding to go to college, I think that would be good for people who have many different passions. But
And
I take offense because my major is pre-law, okay, and this is what I want to do. There's nothing, literally, like I have other interests, but I could not sit in a classroom for 4 years learning about business, even though I could do that. Or I could not sit in a graphic design, you know what I'm saying? So, and I think you're forgetting how versatile a degree is. So even though my major is pre-law, it's political science with a concentration in law. And so I can be a political scientist, I could be a pollist, I could be anything within the politics realm. I can go to law school and I can do any kind of law. I could be a paralegal. And so I feel like whatever major you choose, if you're thinking that it's only going to put you in a box, that's not true. And I feel like I can even go into business with my pre-law degree.
What if you were someone who you have many different interests, and you want to be a lawyer, but you also really like marketing?
You can have the job experience, the internships. It's not limiting me into one field.
It's not limiting you, and I'm definitely not saying that. I'm saying for me, if I don't really have an interest in law outside of going to law school. So because I don't, like the type of jobs that having a poli-sci degree would get me would not be the type of jobs I want. I'm much more oriented to like entrepreneurship, business, marketing, like becoming an executive, all those. So if I didn't go to law school, that's the path I foresee myself taking. That on top of that, knowing that law schools don't really care what degree you get anyway, to me tells me that, you know, if my heart is not in just like law as a whole, I don't need to bother spending 4 years of my life doing something that might not pay off the way how I want it to. And so that's why I specifically picked business. And even how you said that, you know, you want to do acting, but you chose a film degree. That's smart, because I mean, what if you got to the end of college and you're like, you know what, I actually don't want to do acting.
Yeah, but
now
that's
you've
not gonna
put
happen,
yourself.
but yeah, I get you.
Yeah, but if it, God forbid it did happen,
Yeah.
you could now put yourself in this tiny box,
Yeah.
and you've limited yourself on the opportunities that you're able to go
So I
for.
guess that's the difference, is like knowing yourself and what you want to do and being confident in it, because I promise you I'm not changing my major. I've wanted to do this since middle school and I was sure about it. But if you're iffy, it's like you need to be absolutely sure and you need to act accordingly. Like even though she is all in with acting, like she said, she's being smart about it with film, but that doesn't necessarily mean that like acting, like film just gives her a wider range, but acting would still give her the same experience.
It's bigger than that though too, though, I feel, because on one hand, even if you do know that you want to do something, if you look economically speaking, the market for actors specifically isn't going to be as large as the market for the entire film degree.
Yeah.
So you may not be able to find work as an actor, but if you have a film degree, you can do editing. There's a huge field for editing.
See, and even like when I was like looking for colleges and that would facilitate me, when I thought about that, is like, yes, I want to be an actor, but I also need to live, because I don't want to be a starving artist in LA. So if I can get a job being a producer's assistant or a director's assistant, I'm still learning from whoever I'm there. I'm still on set. And I have the degree to do that. And I like later, because I know these people, and then I can start, you know, really doing what I want.
And you're still advancing your career. So
Exactly.
that's what I guess I'm saying more so overall, is that if you do go to college, and I think that almost everyone should go to college, if you do go to college, make sure that the degree that you pick will give you enough versatility afterwards to be able to recoup your investment. Otherwise, if you major in something very specific, even if you do have a passion for it, you do run the risk. The more specific and smaller your field that you're going into, the greater your risk of you not being able to recoup your investment. That shouldn't deter your passion for pursuing our particular field, but I just feel that that's something every college student should be aware of.
So going back to the question, what else do you guys wish someone told you before you came to college?
I forgot about that question.
Yeah, we went on that tangent.
Learn about yourself too, like just
That's
personal
important.
journey, because why waste your money if you don't know what you want to do, you don't know who you are, you've made a lot of enemies and you just hate it here. Like, so there's nothing wrong with taking gap years, there's nothing wrong with delaying your journey, because you're still gonna get there.
Yeah. In terms of like relationships, not necessarily just like romantic ones, but platonic ones, I realized when I got here that I didn't know how to manufacture platonic relationships with people, period. Because I had never, I had never been, oh, what is platonic?
No, I said, what is friend?
Oh, exactly.
Don't
So,
have
because when I
those.
got here, this was the first time I was ever like the new girl where I didn't know anyone on campus. Because I've always been in a familiar space where I know someone, or at least I know people around me. And now I'm in a space where I know no one. It's like, oh, I have to make friends now. And I have to get out of like my introverted mindset of wanting to be isolated. And now I have to do that. So learn about that. And also don't get a boyfriend freshman orientation week. Yeah.
Sound advice.
Sounds like my mom.
Don't get pregnant.
Please.
That you're not in,
Oh, please.
that you know, you're not in Kansas anymore. Like, because a college degree is so, I still believe a college degree is a ticket. They're gonna make you work for that ticket. And so if you can mentally prepare yourself to put in 110% of your time and efforts and investment of
Learn
4
how to
years of your
finesse.
life.
All I gotta say.
Well, I mean, you know, so if you
how
can
to
finesse,
finesse.
that's good. I'm a teacher's pet in all my classes, and I'm not gonna say that I
Yes.
haven't finessed any classes. But at the same time, because it's so competitive, because more and more people are going to college, it's not enough just to even go to college. You have to make sure that you're working for it, because there are other people vying for your spot. And ultimately, that's going to make all the difference in who goes forward in this world and who doesn't, is who's willing to put in more work than all the other
just
people.
to add to that, do not settle with just passing a class. You need to.
Students do get degrees, but why?
Don't do that. Because I remember I was watching Dear White People, and what was her name? Coco. Like in one of her classes, she was trying to get like 100%. I was like, if she got less than that, like, nah. I admired that. Because like once I get a 90, I'm like, yeah, I'm cool with that. But it's like, you could do so much more. So if you know you have the potential, work within that potential.
I mean, GPAs also matter with grad school. Like, that it's like #1 in some cases for grad school. If you're not going to grad school, it's like, okay. But then I also will say, like, give 110, but don't let it stress you out. Like, my freshman year, I was stressed for those A's, and like, that was one of the worst years of my life. And so now I'm still like giving 110, but you know, it's not a big deal if I get a B. Like, it's like, I'm not gonna cry about it anymore.
But just work for better.
Yeah, be your best self, but don't like stress yourself.
To put some pressure on it though, I feel that race is a factor, and I feel that that needs to be brought up and discussed, is that in this country, there is a lot of leeway for mediocre white people to get positions that black people have to be A's. Like, even going down to who's president right now.
Not only black people, but like all POCs.
A black person with that intellect would never make it into that office. But
Obama. Oh, with that intellect.
with
okay,
that intellect, would never make it into office.
Yeah.
And
Let's
even,
make that clear.
even if you look at like politicians in general, and I mean, you know, you name it, whatever job you want. There is an influx of C students with a certain skin color who have been afforded opportunities, and you just have to remember, as black people, a C student might not get there, and that's like Barack Obama. You have to be a A+ student. You have to be top of your class to achieve some of the positions that you want. So I feel a double pressure because, you know, just being a college student, but then on top of everything, being a black college student, that if I just don't put in enough work into this, it still might be for nothing.
And not only about work, and not only about grades, but if we're using Obama as like the example, he was squeaky clean. We have never had a president this clean before, like no scandal in his whole 8 years. I remember the last president we've had like that. Not in my lifetime.
His biggest scandal was tan suit.
Was a tan suit.
It was a clean tan suit.
It was so nice.
Like he was in China and he was chewing gum going into his hotel. And Fox News went crazy. But that, like,
well, and the real estate developer in Chicago.
Yeah, but okay, this not using him as the example. He had to be squeaky clean. So not only about like your work and your grades, but just being a good person and not putting yourself in situations where you can end up in jail. Because black people with criminal records, it makes everything worse.
Clean up your social media.
That too, or make your things private.
Yeah, definitely.
I wish they would have told me, well, they did tell me, but I wish I would have told myself. I probably still wouldn't listen. But to learn, like, the importance of studying. Because I, like, you know how in high school, well, I didn't really need to study to just, like, feel like I got this.
It was very easy.
Exactly. But there are some classes, not all classes, there are some classes in college where you need a little bit of extra time. And if you're not used to setting that time apart and productively studying, it can kind of set you back.
And it's building your work ethic too.
Exactly.
Like, if you can't do it now, like, you're definitely not going to do it later. So it shows a lot.
Can I pose a question?
Go for it.
I feel that when we've been talking, like, just back to the general conversation about going to college versus not going to college, I feel like we've been talking specifically from like a non-racial perspective. For black people, how does that alter the going to college versus not going to college spectrum? Like, will you, not going to college as a black person, will you have the same level of opportunities as somebody who didn't but might be white?
touched on it earlier when you were talking, you didn't go on it in depth, but you talked about the racial wealth gap. And if I remember the stats correctly, for a white family, it's for average white family, it's $130,000 a year. And for the average black family, it's $13,000 a year. That's the wage gap that we have right now.
Wow.
And if we're talking about with white people, I was about to say bland people. I'm so sorry. For white people, I'm so sorry.
Lack of color?
I'm so sorry, guys. For white people, a lot of them, they've been born with a certain privilege. I'm not saying a lot of them, but for a good amount of them, they have enough money where they can invest.
Regardless.
No, we're talking about money. We're talking money privilege. For a good amount of them, they have that privilege that if they didn't go to college,
wealth.
they still have enough money, that generational wealth, to invest in companies and make a company of their own and keep it going. For black families, we don't have an inheritance. We don't have money like that. So we kind of have to go to college. And we do need to go to college because another thing, what you were talking about, it's worse to be a black person without a degree than to be a black person with a degree. Because now you're already at like a disadvantage because you're black. But now you're a black person without a degree, it makes it so much worse. So there's that. I hope I made sense.
I feel like also I want to touch on a lot of our young black men are being exploited because they feel like they need to go to college and they happen to be good at sports, football, basketball, and they're being exploited for these scholarships. The scholarships are like, yes, that's great, but they're not being paid. Like Zion, I think, is playing for Duke, and that man could make so much money off of his talent of basketball, and yet, like,
Slavery.
he's not getting, it's slavery, like, he's not getting paid, and, like, you
'Cause
just
you're in
get college, and he
Yeah.
doesn't have enough time, I guarantee he doesn't have enough time to put the effort into his classes, and they make it seem like basketball is his job. So if you do go to college on a sports scholarship, work for your degree, like, that's why you're here. I mean, you might have gotten the scholarship from sports, but if your grades are dropping because of, like, the importance that they put on your talent, like, I don't think it's worth it, personally.
Kristen touched on it, but I kind of want to reiterate the question because I think it would be nice to get, like, a solid answer. Is finding success outside of college for black people a white fantasy? Or is that something that's achievable? Is that a path that black people should even pursue?
I mean, it's not a
it's
fantasy. 'Cause-
attainable.
Yeah, because Oprah did it. Because I remember her story was that she was in
exception,
college.
not the rule.
Exactly.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, but there are
gates.
Like,
he
it's
said,
not something
he
you
said a
should
white fantasy, and I'm saying that it's
Yeah.
not a fantasy because it has
That's what I'm saying.
happened.
The only one for us is rapping and basketball.
No, but
mean, how
no,
many black people are
Literally,
YouTubers?
it's literally rapping and basketball.
It's not.
They're
It's-
YouTubers.
I mean,
There's a whole bunch of
there's
stuff
so
that
many
you can
other
get money
things.
from.
All right, so going back to Oprah.
not the norm.
Oprah was in college at the time, and she got a job with some, like, I think it was like with ABC or somebody. And she didn't want to drop out of school. She went to like her professor or somebody, and her professor was like, "This is what people go to school for." And she dropped out and she went somewhere else. So in his point, it's not, even though it is an exception, it's not a fantasy.
Even in that analogy, though,
Yeah.
how would she have gotten that opportunity had she not even at least been at college?
Right.
No, she was
For the
doing other stuff.
opportunity.
But I remember, don't quote me on this, but she was working at other like radio stations and she was working with other like TV places. So it wasn't because she was in college. She was just doing college and she was doing other things. And from what I remember, she got that opportunity from the other things that she was doing.
So you were saying then that she got the opportunity more so from her outside work more than her going
I just
to college?
can't say more because I don't remember off the top of my head.
But-
But I was debunking your point that it's a fantasy because it can happen.
Oh, by fantasy, I don't mean that it can't happen. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, the odds, though.
Oh,
'Cause
like
yeah,
you
the
can
odds
do.
definitely.
The
what Tia
odds
said
are
is
not
real.
there. The
What Tia
odds are
said is
just
real.
not
Like,
there.
we only have the opportunity to be athletes or rappers if we're not going to
Not
college.
only,
It's
yeah.
not. It's not without the extreme example of Oprah. Like, there are other people talk about
Name
YouTube
some.
and stuff. I don't
Go
know
ahead.
any YouTubers, but there's
Like,
some black YouTubers with
but I
some
mean,
money
it's
out there.
entertainment. We're
Exactly.
literally the Uncle Toms, like dancing for the white man. It's
What?
like
Unless you want to
Ken
dance,
Hall.
if you want to dance and you're dancing,
No, I'm not saying.
Wait, pause. Are you
Let me
saying that
explain.
everyone in entertainment
No.
industry is Uncle Tom?
No,
where's the
no,
line?
that's
Where's the line?
no.
so-
I'm saying like that's how they view us. Is like finally we've made it, but like we're entertaining them in a way. Basketball, rapping, like TV, like
Basketball
even
and rap
you know
have
what
its
I'm
own
saying?
kind
Like
of
tell
little
even
thing.
Oprah, like she's not an Uncle Tom because she's helping her community, but she's entertaining. That's
Can you
that's
change
the
the way
only
they view
thing
you
they
though? Because
see
if they
us
view you
as.
like that's not going to
I'm
change.
talking about you. That's
saying.
only what they see
Nah,
us
but Tia,
as.
do you
I'm
realize-
sorry.
And you can't
Do you
change what
realize
they
what
see you
you're
as.
saying?
Yes, I'm saying you can't change what they view us as.
Nah,
So
but
if you want to be an
you're-
entertainer, regardless of how they're going to look at you, you're going to be an entertainer.
Yeah.
But you're also saying that everyone who goes, even if they have a passion for that, everyone who goes into the entertainment industry, going into basketball, going into acting, going into whatever, they're seen as Uncle Tom. And I just,
No, I'm not
that's what
saying
you're
from
saying.
us. I'm saying from white people specifically. Tyler Perry is not an Uncle Tom. He is doing a lot for our community, but
But
he
I'm sure
is
people look at
literally
that as
only
like
there
that
to
when it's media.
entertain them. And so to get into a successful space without entertaining white people is very difficult.
Can I interject?
I don't even think you should think about that.
So as someone who loves music and even pursues music to a certain degree, I was surprised recently to learn that Snoop Dogg has more white fans than he does black fans.
Yeah.
And
lot of them
the only reason
Have you
why
seen
is because
Beyonce's
they're more
concert?
of the
Hold on,
population.
let him finish.
But the only reason why is because they're more of the population. So I agree with Tia to the extent that they're not necessarily trying to cater to that audience, but just because that's the bigger audience, there is going to be a larger percent of those type of people that tune in to view your entertainment. That doesn't mean that you're necessarily trying to placate to them, but that just it's a secondary effect.
intentions.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that only to say, even in regards to the conversation we're having at large about college, is that outside of that kind of entertainment industry, whether you are intentionally or not intentionally just entertaining white people, what other opportunities do black people have? Because I mean, sure, there are, I do like to see on Instagram where they have specific posts where they're shouting out shouting out black businesses. Because I think it's really important to see black businesses.
And I think what you're talking about, I think we are at fault a little bit for that. There was a guy that came to our school who was, he was a millionaire, and he happened to be within like our sphere and our religion. And he talked about how when he got his millions, he built his mansion in the hood. And I really liked it. I talked to him after about it, because for us, for a lot of people, when they become successful, they go into white neighborhoods to live. And those kids, those black kids, they don't have anyone to look up to who's done anything other than rap and play basketball. So they can't aspire. Most times they don't think it's in their reach to want to be an astronaut or to want to be like Neil deGrasse Tyson or anything like that. So most times that's the only thing that they think that they can do. And at that point, I think we're at fault for that.
I liked him because he was enriching the community he came from. And I feel like for me, when I see successful black people, they either went to college and are in their respective fields, or they're entertainers for like whatever demographic. And I feel like we as a community don't like support our own entrepreneurs to where you can't go to college. Like the people who don't go to college and like are trying to be successful, we don't enrich them as much when they're trying to like be in their respective careers. So I feel like we need to just build ourselves up in a way to where college isn't necessary for us anymore, to where I can cater my business to black people only and still like make millions. And you know what I'm saying, start selling to people to where our...
You got that buying power.
Yeah, to where our, to where the buyers aren't just white people.
Okay, so last question. What are some of the biggest issues you see in the collegiate system, and how do you think they can be changed for the better?
I don't know how you can change student loans, but that's a big issue.
Warren, 2020.
Or burning. Yeah.
So student loans?
Student loans is a big issue. I don't know how to fix it, personally.
It's just way too expensive.
It's too expensive.
Like if you're going to
Seems like gentrification.
if you're going to a well-known school, because even with certain HBCUs, when I was looking at Howard is, I think right now is $40,000 a year. And as an international student, that can easily get up to like 50, because I need to do so many things just to get into the United States and to like get settled. So that's a lot of money to be shoveling out every year. So that's a more well-known school. If you want to go to like Harvard, that's $70,000 a year. So I think, yeah, it's way too expensive.
I think a major thing is funding, especially for HBCUs. Because a place like Harvard, even though it's very expensive to go, a lot of people don't know their financial aid package is very nice. And their alumni give back like very generously. So even though it's expensive, I was shocked to find out like how much money a Harvard student might actually get. And like somewhere like Howard, the difference of like going to Harvard, that it is more expensive, but their package is like heavier than a Howard where their package is lower. So it's honestly funding. Like even though the student loan crisis does need to be addressed, like HBCUs need the resources so that we can survive and like thrive. And compared to PWIs, even like being able to go and like being in the middle class cusp of not being able to afford it, but you can't afford it type of thing.
Anything else?
I mean, I don't know if it's like something within college that's broken or even the idea of college itself is broken. Okay. I'm a proponent of college only because I'm a realist. But I feel in an ideal world, there shouldn't be a need for college as the main way in order to get a job. I feel that there are other ways to define intelligence outside of the classroom, and I wish that that was a bigger consideration and could be measured more effectively than by sending a group of students to a certain school in hopes of being able to get a big enough loan to pay for the school, and then whenever they're finished, that an employer would hire them and then they pay it all off. To me, I find that to be an initially broken system, even by itself. But like I said, it's like the only reason why I am a major proponent of college is just from a realistic standpoint, is just feel that there's a certain level of opportunity available. And right now, the only pipeline is college. Like even what you guys were talking about earlier, just being able to have enough people who are in high enough positions to where they can change that environment. Even, it's a bad example, but even with like say Young Thug paying Lil Baby to go to the studio so that Lil Baby could record tracks and become successful, that was just an example of somebody who already was in a position of power enabling someone who didn't have those resources and change their lives. Like, and the man who paid off the Morehouse, the student loans for Morehouse, I wish we could see that more, and I really do wish that we just had a system where there were enough resources to where people didn't necessarily need to go to college to achieve their dreams and goals. But right now, I just feel like the entire system of college itself is broken, and that hopefully it can become outdated.
Agreed.
All right, well, I'm always sad when we come to the end of the episode, but we've come to the end of another episode. I want to thank you guys for coming and taking time out of your busy schedules to come talk with us. Now, college, is it necessary or is it not? You heard both sides. It's up to you to decide. Stay tuned for next week's episode.
Roger that.